Welcome to Difficult Conversation Africa broadcast. I present to you the host, Yinka Olaito.
In today's fast evolving world, artificial intelligence is no longer a distant concept. It has become a transformative force shaping and reshaping industry and redefining world of works and how everything is changing. And it's challenging traditional model of leadership as well. From automation to routine tasks to enabling complex data-driven decision makings, AI is shifting what leaders need to know and how they should make decisions, the skill they must cultivate over the time. The future of leadership in an AI-driven world will require not only technical literacy, but also emotional intelligence, adaptability, and more importantly, a deep sense of ethics, innovation with human-centered values. These dilemma and ethical dilemmas that it will create, we have to foster inclusive environment and where both human talent and machine intelligence thrive. I will be holding this conversation with Charlotte Kemp. She is the CEO of Force into Africa, a South African-based organization, a futurist, a keynote speaker. She's also an executive coach, and she had, in many ways, helped to explore and reimagine the innovative practices emerging across industry and what skill the next generation of leader we need to know to succeed. Welcome to the program, Charlotte Camp.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to share with you and your listeners today.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. I'm impressed by the work that you do, and I say kudos to you. I've followed you for some time, and being a South African-based executive coach, I need to celebrate the success you have made, particularly in your executive coaching. And I want to say, keep the good work doing. Okay, let's go dive straight into the question. I'm sure you've heard the background of the conversation we're trying to set. And being a futurist and a keynote leader and executive coach, I think that our audience will appreciate your thought in some of these issues. The first question that I want to ask you, in an AI-driven era, how do you think the definition of effective leadership is changing compared to traditional leadership models?
I think the time that we're in, where artificial intelligence has a much bigger role to play than we've seen in the past, it's indicating that it's not just about artificial intelligence, but about all of the changes around the world, all of the technology, the pace of change, and the complexity of the world. All of that means leadership has to change, and that our old traditional models don't work. In the past, our leadership models were very much hierarchical. So there was somebody at the top who holds all the power and the direction, who has most of the experience, knows everything, and will then instruct the layers beneath them in how to actually do the work that needs to be done. In today's world, because things are so fast-paced and changing, no one person can hold all of that knowledge or experience. And instead of that being like a command and control structure, it needs to be more of a holacracy, a team where everybody works together, and the leader is not at the top, but in the middle of the group, of the team, so that they can equip the team to do the work that needs to be done. So a modern leader, using AI or aware of all the changes, will be somebody who can facilitate the people that they work with doing their best work. And sometimes that means the leader steps back and says, I think you have some insight that I don't have. Can you share that with the group? All right, now how do we take that and do the next step or take the next actions? So it's very much more participative than it has been in the past. I think that is the main change in terms of leadership today.
Thank you, Charlotte. And you talk about a modern leader. In your experience, and this is not part of the question, I just want to get your feedback before we go forward. How adaptive are the leaders today?
How adaptive are they? I think it very much depends on context, and I know that there are cultural issues as well. Some leaders are very adaptive. Some leaders are comfortable in consulting the people they work with and coming up with a plan together to do something. But of course, there's still very many leaders who are trained the old-fashioned way, who still feel like they have to maintain all the control. But those organizations become very rigid. And when things happen, they can't respond to it. Think of a rigid structure and there's an earthquake, it's going to collapse. But if you have a building built aware of the earthquake potential, then that building has a bit of movement and it can respond. And the same thing with adaptive leaders. So you find more people becoming adaptive. One thing that we still see, though, is that even with somebody who wants to be adaptive, who wants to be responsive, who wants to consult, when there is a threat, when they get overwhelmed, when they don't know how to go forward, they very often retreat back to old-fashioned models. And that's when people become dictatorial again and instructive rather than consulting. So all of us have the potential to kind of retreat to that old-fashioned way of this is how you must do it, instead of this is how we can build it together. So I think that's just a natural experience we have.
Okay, let's go to question 2. The question 2 I would like to ask now is, what core skills and mindset should leaders develop today to remain relevant and impactful to the next for the next decade?
Okay, so it all starts with mindset. If you think about anything we're trying to achieve, think of it like a pyramid model. At the bottom is mindset. We have to get our mindset right. Then we can develop the tools, and then we can develop the skills for the future, for the next decade. The mindset needs to be a future-focused mindset. It needs to be a mindset that is capable of dealing with challenges, with rapid change, with uncertainty. And we don't all have that mindset. There are lots of people who really cling to the need of being able to define things, and they don't like uncertainty. But a modern leader, it needs to be comfortable with not knowing exactly what's going to happen next, and work out how to deal with that. So mindset is very important, a future-focused mindset, an agile mindset. The skills that we eventually develop, there's quite a few of them, and I can mention a few. One would be strategic foresight skills. So that's futures thinking. And that means that a person, when we make a plan for an organization, it's not just one business plan. We have to think about it strategically because there may be variations on that plan. We need to be able to think broader, like in scenarios, about what could happen so that we can respond to different things. So it's very much a flow and a movement. That is like the core mindset and the core skills we're developing. So a strategic foresight, so not just planning for the future, but strategically anticipating the future. Anticipatory leadership, anticipatory planning is also a skill set. We need to look at innovation and creativity. Those are essential skills to develop in our leaders, because what we've had in the past that have brought us to this point, those tools won't take us forward. So we have to be creative and innovative to find new ways of going forward in business. And ethical decision making is really important, a very important skill, because as new technologies come, as new politics comes into play, we need to we need to decide what our ethics are. We need to make up new ideas about what is right and wrong and acceptable or not acceptable.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. There's one issue that you raised. I'm sorry to ask another question within this, within to your answer. As a South African, and maybe as part of people living in Africa, how easy has it been for leaders to have that mindset that you are talking about?
Um, Not easy. Beg your pardon. It's not easy. I mean, obviously, Africa, from the work that I've done in the speaking world and in the futures world, Africa is rich with resources and land and culture and people. Our people are very innovative and creative because things are different in Africa than they are in other parts of the world. So that is good. But when it comes to leadership, we have a heritage. We've inherited all of the colonial influence that has defined how Africa should be. And I think that is something really interesting we're finding in different parts of the continent, countries and people and leaders fighting against that colonialism and trying to work out what we are instead. So what do we accept? What do we discard? What do we redefine? Some leaders want to hold on very tightly to either an initial culture in their country or some kind of colonial structure that serves them. And other people want to redefine it. And I don't think it's helpful to break everything and start again, but we should all be in this kind of conversation, in this dialogue to say, this is what we've inherited. How do we use that to really honor this country, this continent, our people, our culture, our heritage? And that is a very creative space to be in, and a wonderful opportunity for Africa to really define what our voice is and what we want to share with the rest of the world.
Thank you for that insight that you have shared, because I know the problem of mindset is the challenges of having the right mindset to leadership is really important. And like you said, the colonial issues, the colonial culture, and merging the contextual scenario in Africa can really be a challenge. Now, let's go to the next question. How can leaders foster productive balance between leveraging AI capability, preparing human capability, and empathy on decision making? Because these are issues that I've seen some leaders struggle with.
Yeah, that's a huge question. There's so much we could unpack in that. I think let's start with this understanding. Artificial intelligence is a wonderful tool that we can use to create wonderful opportunities. Some people will use that tool to create bad things, and that's just normal with any tool. Any tool that we use can create art or it can create mayhem. And we need to understand that. So AI is not at fault. It is just a tool that we use. Some people not know how to use the tool with skill to create something, and others make a mess with it because they don't have that skill yet. So I think with leaders, one of the things we're seeing already, that this is evident everywhere, is artificial intelligence can save us a lot of time and effort by being more efficient, being faster, being able to access more data and information. So we can get a lot more done in a shorter period of time because of artificial intelligence. What that means, and we're seeing this in Europe, we're seeing this in North America, in Asia, what that means is instead of allowing humans to have more time, because AI has taken some of our work and effort, instead of us having more time to develop human things, all we do is we try and do more work. So AI makes us more efficient. So we try and do more and more and more work to fill up the 8 hours of our working day or the 40 hours of the week or make it 60 hours. And people just are expected to do more. We can do better than that. And what better place than in Africa to say, if artificial intelligence and technology is saving me from the grudge work that I need to do, then what is left for me to do? Can I take a few more hours in my work day or in my work week to create something new, to be innovative, to spend more time in conversation with people who work with me or with clients or with stakeholders or with community? We can use the time that AI affords us to do better human work. They're not doing that in the Northern Hemisphere. They're not doing that in North America and Europe, we can do that here. We can take more time to be empathetic and creative because of that.
I like your enthusiasm that you say that even if they are not doing it in other regions of the world, we can do it here, and there's possibility. Now, can you share a sample of innovative leadership practice you have seen that has integrated into strategic planning and operation successfully in the course of doing your work as executive coach and a futurist within the leadership sphere? I mean, within Africa.
Yes. So I actually encourage a lot of people that I work with to use AI more, because it helps us to understand things deeper. So the world, the two things we have as we go into the future that keep affecting us is the pace of change. So things get faster and faster and faster, and then the complexity, because now there's more connections, more supply chains and relationships, and how geopolitical conflict. It's all very complex now. We can use artificial intelligence to help us with some of that. So, for example, if you got a leadership challenge, and I'm not entirely sure how this is playing out in Africa specifically, but there's more generations coming into the workplace. So in North America, for example, they really stress about the millennials and the Gen Z and the Gen X and the newest generations coming into the office, and all the values are different. And how do we work together? So leaders have sat with artificial intelligence and said, help me to understand the values and the context of a younger generation that I don't know, or an older generation. So a young person can sit with AI and say, explain to me what the world looks like to a Gen Z, a Gen X at least, somebody who's in their 40s and 50s. What does the world look like to them? Why can't we communicate? So artificial intelligence you can have a conversation and you can learn about how to relate to different generations in the workplace. When we want to do business with a different country, we can use artificial intelligence to help us to understand some of the culture. So before I make my pitch to somebody in Malaysia or somebody in Dubai, help me understand the country, the culture, the politics around there. Help me understand, what is that part of the world look like? Because I haven't been there, or I haven't been there enough, or I've only been there as a tourist. Help me understand so that I can do business. So we can do research to frame our thinking about things, which is much more powerful than we've had in the past. Like we might have consulted with one person, or we might have assumed that they just do business like we do business here, and that's not right. So that's really helpful. Looking at different scenarios. So one of the things we do as futurists is look at different ways the world could pan out. So in Cape Town a few years ago, we had very severe droughts. So we could sit in South Africa and look at scenarios about bad weather, about droughts, about floods, which we have from time to time. We can get artificial intelligence to help us to consider those different environmental issues, and then to say, what could we do to kind of anticipate that? What infrastructure do we need? So governments, cities can use artificial intelligence to really work that out, not to make the decisions, but to give us a framework so that we can consult with the professionals so that we can prepare for it. Small businesses can use artificial intelligence for the same thing, saying, if there's a drought in my city and this is my business, how is it going to affect me? How can I anticipate it so that I can prepare? So it's kind of like a really incredible research tool on practical levels, relationship levels, understanding different cultures and people. And I've seen that happen, just play out in so many different ways, using the different kind of AI tools that we have.
Yeah, I must commend your insight, Charlotte. But as you and I know, AI is not free from biases and misuse. So a concern for a leader or any other person is How with the here potential for abuse and misuse? How should leaders approach ethical decision makings and accountability in this new landscape?
That's a very, very important consideration. One of the things that we've found with artificial intelligence that is created in North America, in the United States of America, is that it is very biased towards the people who created it. So if you have a whole department of young white men designing artificial intelligence, it is centered around how they see the world. And it's not going to serve other races, other genders, and other parts of the world, because we can use it, but we don't realize it was created that way, which means if we ask artificial intelligence something, it's going to give us an answer that would satisfy that group of people, not the rest of us. The first thing we need is the literacy, the understanding that that can happen. So don't assume that artificial intelligence is correct. It's just a tool. It's giving you ideas, and now we have to use those ideas. Artificial intelligence is also often designed to agree with us. So if you ask it questions and you're coming with a bias and you're saying, show me how what I believe about the world is true, AI will find proof to show you that it's true. Just like the algorithms, we get caught in the algorithm that echoes back our own values to us. So once we know that, the first thing we need to do is go to AI and say, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I'm looking for. What am I missing? So ask the question, what haven't I thought about? Tell me about the opinions that are opposite to mine. Tell me about successes that are opposite to how I do things. If somebody was going to disagree with me, what would the questions be that they would give to me? So allow yourself, be courageous enough to use AI to try and get that information out of it, because then you are preparing your brain for those other ideas. And then you might say, I only saw it this way. I never knew that there was a different perspective. Here's a different perspective. Let me respect the people who believe that. Let me talk with them. Let me understand. And then as leaders, we have a better idea of going forward. So we have to be aware. We have to challenge AI to help us to explore better. The other thing would be to recognize that it's giving you information as a tool, but you still have the responsibility as the human and as the leader to actually do something with that. So now that you got all this information, how are you going to use it? How are you going to actually make decisions? And then I think lastly, something that I'd love to see more of, and I know it's happening in little places, is we should be developing artificial intelligence platforms in Africa, because then it's going to be centered on people in Africa. I know that there is one in Nigeria. I'm afraid I cannot remember the details, but when Nigerians sit down and create artificial intelligence, it's going to be centered on your country's values and insights. If somebody does it from Kenya, it's going to be based on their culture and their insights, their assumptions of what the world looks like. And it may not be an AI platform that is used by other parts of the world. But the fact that it exists and that it is different from others, that in itself is a powerful message that just because AI platforms are created elsewhere does not mean we have to adopt them here, or that they actually serve us. And sometimes we might want to challenge that and push back. So if there's a leader who seriously wants to use AI and wants to check on this bias, be intentional when you start engaging with it, to kind of look at what are the assumptions that I'm making about AI? What are the assumptions AI is making about me? And what is it doing? So, for example, I use ChatGPT for a couple of things that I do. And ChatGPT now knows, because it's got a bit of a memory there. When I say, give me examples of companies that have done this, or give me quotations from people who have said, memorable things about my topic. So when I'm going to speak, I want to have some quotes. It automatically looks for quotations or stories from people in Africa people in Asia, and people in South America and Latin America. It doesn't give me answers in Europe. It doesn't give me answers from North America, because I've told it enough times. I want to hear the other stories, not the tired old stories. So it goes and finds things. So I've taught my AI to find those stories and those voices that otherwise would have been missed, because I believe that those are important to share.
That's a fact. One thing that I pick out of your conversation is responsibility of the user, especially the leader, is very key when you want to avoid biases and unethical use. Because of our time, let's go to the last question for the day. If you were to give one piece of advice to emerging leader preparing for for an AI-driven future, what would that advice be?
Okay. We need to understand AI. We need to engage with it and work with it and learn, and not be afraid of what it is. I see a lot of people just resisting AI and saying, no, we just want to use, human voices and human thought. But AI can be really powerful in giving you insights. I developed a concept some time ago. It's my concept. It came out during COVID. I created the logo for it. I designed the whole thing. It's my work. Okay. But then I wanted to write a book about it. So I went to AI and I said, this is my concept. These are what I'm thinking about. Help me to understand it better. What would this look like? How would I express this? And I used AI to kind of really get deeper and deeper and deeper into my topic. So now the topic that I have is much more valuable than it was when I thought about it, because I've used AI as a tool to do better research. Then I said to AI, this is my idea, but has anybody in the world done anything like this? And it found a university in Turkey that had a course that was on a similar topic of mine, but not exactly the same, but close enough. And then it told me these are the like the principal points in that course about this topic. And then I said, okay, well, compare theirs to mine. So I brought it together, created me a table, said, you talk about this, they talk about that. They talk about this, which you don't. You talk about this, which they don't. Here's some kind of like parallels. So now the work that I do is even more valuable than before because I've used AI. So we must be able to use it to do better work. We must be able to learn how to use it to be more efficient or effective, so that we are free to do the more human things that we need to do. And then, I know this is more than one piece of advice, but then what I would say is, what is it that you as a human really want to achieve? What is your art? What is your magnum opus? What is your creative expression? What is it, your business goal that you're trying to achieve? And then work out how to use AI to get you there, rather than just using AI to just keep doing more and more work. It is a tool that we need to use and learn how to use better.
Yeah, Charlotte Kemp, I need to commend your insight, and I think that we should have a part two to this in no distant future. Your insight have been really, really with deep reflections on the use of AI, and I must commend your work. My guest had been Charlotte Kemp, a South African executive coach, futurist, leader, and a keynote speaker of international repute. Our audience, let me let you know this. Whatever you have gleaned from this conversation, it is the age of AI. Leadership is no longer about having all the answers. It is about asking the right question, knowing when to let the machine speak. Tomorrow leaders won't just manage people. They will have to manage intelligence. They will have to manage it and human and artificial in all of this. And therefore, with this, we have come to the end of this conversation. The features of leaders in an AI and innovative age. And my guest has been Charlotte Kemp, the CEO of Voice into Africa, a South African based executive coach, keynote speaker, and a futurist. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode. For inquiry, please send an email to info@difficultconversationafrica.org. Telephone 0809 3160591. Please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Difficult Conversation Africa. See you soon.